In July of 1973, Michael Wu and Silme Domingo commenced on an observation trip to investigate discrimination in Alaskan canneries against Filipinos in Uganik and Kodiak.
A lot of discrimination that both the younger Filipinos faced, but also the Manos, who have faced that type of discrimination for years. They lived in separate housing. The Filipinos stayed in one bunkhouse, and the white workers stayed in another bunkhouse. Even their linens were separated by bunkhouses. The food in the mess halls were segregated, with the Filipinos having lower quality food. But most of all, the Filipinos were being discriminated because they were not in the higher paying jobs.
They posed as Washington College students doing a research project on Alaska canneries. One of the biggest companies that owned several of the canneries in Alaska was the New England Fisheries Company, or NEFCO. One of the working arrangements that greatly affected the non-white crew was the quality of the housing the company provided. White workers lived in rooms that were wood-paneled, carpeted, with many electrical outlets. Every room had no more than 2 single beds and a large window. There were also a bathroom for every 2 bedrooms. Each bathroom had a shower with glass doors, a sink with a medicine cabinet, a flushing toilet, and electrical shaver outlets. At the end of the hallway were 2 rooms, the laundry room and the lounge. The laundry room had a washer and dryer. The lounge was a large, well-furnished room with modern love seats, sofas, and single seats arranged around coffee tables with hanging lamps. The housing for the non-white crew was a 20 by 40-foot room which had about 10 bunk beds. Clothes were hung on nails. Most of the windows weren't even designed to open, even though there were only fire escapes. Those quarters did not have any private plumbing. There were not any automatic dryers, so clothes were hung outside the bunkhouse. Michael Wu and Silme Domingo were going on a trip to investigate discrimination while posing as college students. While they were there was very obvious discrimination against the non-white crew, which led to the founding of the Alaska Cannery Workers Association. This association filed a lawsuit against the New England Fisheries Company pertaining to the discrimination against the Filipino workers. They won the court case, which eventually brought NEFCO to bankruptcy.
Case happened when it did. It fits with kind of broader current of what was going on in the nation at that point. It was the era of civil rights. So it's interesting on that level because it connects kind of this small Kodiak cannery with much broader national events. But looking at this case specifically, it shows how Alaskeros, people, Filipinos involved in canning, in the canning industry and in Alaska, how engaged they were in fighting for better rights and better jobs here in Kodiak.
After the NEFCO case was over, Jean Viernes and Silme Domingo filed a resolution against the Marcos regime in the Philippines and sent a team to investigate Marcos martial law. They were targeted by the Marcos regime and assassinated on June 1st, 1981, on the streets of Seattle. Could you describe this case, altogether?
So the significance of the case is really some very important landmark lawsuits, and especially because 2 of the cannery lawsuits were won, one being the NEFCO Fidalgo case. They continue to be one of the largest lawsuits ever won for a workforce that migrated up and down the West Coast and worked not only in the canneries but also in the farms. So it was important to show that at one point there were civil rights laws in this country, in the United States, that really tackled discrimination, that fought against segregation, and that young people took up the banner to fight against that discrimination and won, and were able to win in the courts and to organize people to win their civil rights. On the one hand, we celebrate Silme's work and his contributions to Filipino workers and to other workers of color, but at the same time, we mourned his death because it was that work that caused his death to happen.